Hello everyone, my name is Tommy Andreasen and I'm a 40-year-old man who likes to draw ninjas. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've been working with the LEGO Ninjago team since 2009, long before time had a name. And what I've been doing is I've been coming up with concepts and stories and then producing the TV show. But I also like to draw. Being able to draw is a great way to explain your ideas to people and get your ideas across and accepted. So what I will do today is teach you how to draw a ninja, and I'm gonna take you through some basic steps because there are some tricks that you can learn, and then hopefully that'll just make it very easy and enjoyable for you in the future. First, I would like to introduce you to my little friend Kai here. This is a scale-up version of the LEGO minifigure character. And what I want you to look at here is how he's basically built out of simple shapes. So what I'm gonna do is draw basic shapes to get the proportions right, and then I'm gonna add details later. But let's get to the paper. What I like to do is always start with the head. So as I said, the head is basically a square. And what you'll notice is I'm also drawing them a little crooked. And I'm gonna draw a leg here. So there's a foot there. I'm gonna make it more flexible than the figure. So there's the arm, there's another arm, there's a hand. Let's give him a sword. So there's the wrist guard, there's the sword. Now I've basically laid out my ninja here. You can see the proportions are pretty correct. But what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna put this pencil aside and I'm taking one that is softer, which means it makes a darker line. And now I'm gonna redraw all this stuff, but I'm gonna start it to put in some details. I'm just basically sticking to the shape I've already made. However, I am adding some twists and turns that makes up the shape of the ninja mask. I want him to have some motion. Let's go to the legs. Just adding just a little bend to it because I think that makes it more dynamic. You want to show a little side of it because now we're looking inwards to the leg. So I am just gonna add this little shape here and this little shape here. Now it has a little perspective to it. And what you'll notice, they kind of have this curve. So imagine that is your own hand. You see how the curve is here. And there's your sword. Maybe I'll just also add a bit of shoulder plate here. Now you see I basically just redrew what I drew in the beginning, but now it has more of a shape of a ninja that is in movement. I always like to draw this little thing where it's like flailing in the wind. That adds a bit of motion as well. What I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna go over it really quick and add just a bit of details. First of all, let's start with the eyes. And obviously he needs a frown because he's a cool ninja. This is the way his shirt is held together now. I don't know what that was. And also there's the little belt part, do a little buckle here. And now I'm kind of comfortable with this. This has enough details for me. I think he has a pretty good dynamic to him. He's ready to fight. If you have a line that you don't like, you can always just add another line and make that darker. The thickest line always wins. Now we've gotten this far. I want to make sure that we add just a little depth to it because it's a very two-dimensional drawing. So I'm just going to draw a little sun over here. And that means the light is coming from behind him. And that means that the shadow will be on his left side. So let's start with the arm here. So I'm just going to start going up and down with my pencil here. And then I'm releasing the pressure as I am moving towards the right here. And that gives a very nice little feel of, oh yeah, that's a shadow on that side. And now that I've gotten this far, so I'm just gonna draw some weird shapes in the background here. I'll maybe add a line down here, like, all right, he's standing on the foreground here. I like to add a little grass here. There we go. I'm pretty happy with this. The takeaway from this is it was a fairly simple process. Just start by getting your proportions right by breaking it down into those basic rectangles and square shapes. And then you take the freedom in the next step when you're really applying your hard line. And that's it. I hope you found that inspiring. The really important thing is just to have fun with it. It doesn't need to be perfect or anything like that. As long as you like it, that's great. And remember, jump up, kick back, whip around and draw. Hi, it's me again. Today I'm wearing my classical Woo Crew shirt that I'm very fond of, and I also like to draw. And that's what we're gonna do today. I'm not gonna draw a ninja, I am gonna draw a strange skeleton bone warrior kind of guy, and I will be doing it with pens, so whatever goes down on the paper stays on the paper. Let's get started. So, I start with a head, that's a square. Here's the arm, that's that little wrist thing, that's the hand. And I want him to be kicking towards someone. So I'm gonna go really weird with the angle on the leg here. This is not something a normal figure would be able to do. I'm gonna add some sort of weird, dramatic sword in his hand here. Now I have my basic shape. I'm gonna go over it with my pen. You'll notice that I am sloppy with this. Doesn't matter at this point. And I'm gonna improvise a bit with the sword here. I'm gonna make it a really nasty and brutal one. Now I'm getting to the leg. I wanna make sure he's kicking, so this is gonna be a pretty straight line. There we go. Now I have that basic shape down. This is the point where I wanna start adding in some details. I'm gonna have a look at this guy again. I don't wanna be super accurate, but I'll get some of that in there to add some flavor. On his face, we had those nasty teeth. So you can now see the details are starting to come together. You can actually see there's some personality going on. I think I'm happy with this for now. So I'm gonna go over some of those with a wider pen. I'm gonna draw mostly on the left side of all my shapes because I think that gives a nice direction to the figure and it helps define it. Color in the eyes here, so he looks really nasty. I'm gonna go back and forth here. And then when I get down here, I'll start to space out my lines a little more. I'm just gonna do it on the body as well, just to add some weight to the body here. It's very sketchy, but then what you can do is you can add to it some very, very fine lines that has a very neat direction to it. It starts to take the sloppiness out of it. And I'll do the same thing over the sword here. It's kind of like reflective metal. It starts with very, very tight space between the lines, and then I kind of taper it out. I think what I'll also do now is I'll take the fat pen here and I'll do a shadow below him. And you can actually see how that really does something for the dynamic of him. Now you understand that he's up in the air because he's leaping and kicking. So let's say he was starting here and now he's leapt over and kicked this way. So I'll make a movement line here. That's kind of tracking this part of the foot, and then one here. So now you get an idea of how he swept his leg across there. I might just add a few details to the background here. So let's say we have some cliffs here, little ground here. Now you see where he leapt off from. I can add one of these swirly clouds. Obviously you can keep going with stuff like this, but I think the point of this is that it's a lot of fun to draw fast, so don't be afraid to attack the paper. You can make a virtue out of it, and that's what it needs to be. And now we can add some color to it if we feel like it. There you have it. Bone warrior kind of guy with pens. Have fun and ninja draw!
Hi, my name is Nikolaj Morbjerg Severing. I'm a concept artist with the LEGO Ninjago design team, where every day I draw the ninjas, their creations, and the adventures they go on. Today I'll show you how to draw a comic book style background. I'll be working digitally, and I'll show you how that can help us along the way. So let's get drawing. The first thing we want to do is we want to cover the picture with everything we want in it. That means we don't worry too much about perspective or details. All we're looking for is a scenery that has what we want and give us a nice sense of place. I have decided that I want a classical gate from the Ninjago universe. I want a temple in the distance, and I want a dragon leading our eye towards the distant temple. It's a very classical Ninjago scene. Now that I'm happy with my overall layout, I want to go in and refine all the challenging areas, get a bit of perspective and some details going. It's one of those really cool signature things with the Ninjago dragons is how their wings are often made of blades. I want to get that in there. There's a time and place to spend energy on details. You want to spend that energy when you're happy with the composition. The two most significant things in perspective in this, the gate and the temple. Be adventurous and try some stuff out. Make your own personal gate if you're kind of following along here. Making up a dragon head on the spot like this is hard. Find some reference image and use that for inspiration. I'm curving this road to lead the eye towards the tail of the dragon. Now we're ready to block in some color. We want to try and be as fast and loose as we were when we did the initial sketch. And I suggest you start from the sky and work your way forwards. The sky influences the color of the environment, and it really helps us set a mood. I usually start with the darkest color of an area. Try to slowly blend in my changes. I almost forgot to get into the dragon, and I think that's because it's the most challenging. I want this to be a white ice dragon. And I think this dragon will also need some gold. At this stage I'm almost happy with my color sketch. From here on I'll start working in layers, minding that I sort things by foreground, middle ground, background and sky. And now that we have everything blocked out, it gives us a lot more freedom. It's perfectly fine to add even more details if you come up with something fun. I like to add a bit of damage and weathering, and that should be it for line art. When shading, don't be afraid to add a lot of black and see how far it gets you. You can always roll back if you don't like it. I'd say the line art is ready and we can move on to blocking in the colors. I'm really starting to feel the heat in here. You can see that as a theme all the way through. The further something gets towards the background, usually the brighter it gets. With the blocking done, it's time to color our layers. By now we've established so much of the image that there is very little that can go wrong, so have fun with it. I'm gonna make a copy of my color sketch and put it next to the image as I continue so I can be reminded what inspired me when I did that part of the image. Whenever I blend the colors, I try to find the color that I want to blend from and the color that I want to blend to and work towards the middle. Now I move on to the cloud and I want to make them as bright as they're gonna get just around the dragon to really make that stand out and pop. At this distance, mountains are very abstract shapes, so it is just about adding a bit of surface detail. And this is where grouping everything into layers, foreground, middle ground, background and sky, is going to allow us to put a feeling of light and air in between those layers and give a sense of depth. And with this, I'd say our image is done. And there you have it. I look forward to seeing what you come up with, and remember, mastery does not come with one attempt. Be ninja.
Hi, my name is Tommy Kalmar and I am a story entertainment manager at the LEGO Group. Basically what I try to do is bring out the magic of LEGO Ninjago storytelling, from TV show, books, digital and more. I've been story executive on projects like Spinjitzu Brothers, Book of Spinjitzu and the amazing Gamadon spin-off series. And today I'm gonna help you with how to bring out the magic of your stories. Basic way of coining what a story is and what a story needs is three central components: a character, a goal, and a struggle. Because that's where you have the drama. We initially start out by mapping out the basic concept. So, you have ninja fighting these villains, the dragon hunters, over the dragon armor to prevent the bad guys in capturing the dragons. This is an amazing tool to kind of get you started on setting the circumstances behind the conflict, the stakes, the mission. Also really just defining the good versus evil. And when you have established that, you can take it to that next level of going into the character layers and theme. Setting the stakes. Okay, you need to put relevant obstacles in front of your character. Make sure that the stakes are high enough. A ninja losing the weapons of creation, that is really bad. The story takes a turn now. The tensions are rising and your audience, again, is lured in. They're hooked on to continue watching and following the story. Emotional impact. As a storyteller, your worst nightmare is if your story is indifferent. So, this is from the amazing Titanium Ninja episode where pretty much lost Zane. And this scene is so emotional. It's so impactful what is happening. He's totally sacrificed himself to save Ninjago City, to your storytelling, you need to think about what emotion you want your audience to experience. Relatable character. Well, okay, what you need to do when you're focusing on your lead character is make sure your audience is intrigued. So this was the meeting of Skylar. Kai was just immediately fascinated by her, as were the rest of us. So the audience need to empathize with your character. And that means that your character needs to have flaws. They have something they've experienced that influences their way they act in the world. We call this a character wound. Explore character wounds, and I promise you, it will give you a story much more, relatability and, a stronger connection between the audience and the character. Opponent. Who is the person that prevents your lead character from achieving what he or she wants? That's your antagonist, or rather, opponent. In fantasy stories, you will typically have one lead antagonist to amplify the clear divide between the good versus evil. An opponent can also be a friend, a brother, a father, out of good intentions, out of love. It's a great way to elevate conflict in your storytelling. Compelling motivation. There's always a reason why people do why they do. It's so important that you work in some kind of a compelling motivation. It will enable your audience to connect better and also empathize with the villain. So Moro is really an interesting villain because when he was training with Master Wu, he was so focused and believed that he was the destined Green Ninja. But what happens is that the weapons they didn't react to him. So he was upset and just fled from that moment. He's not just one-dimensional evil. You need to set your story in a world that is original, it can be vivid, vibrant, whatever. So think about the locations of Prime Empire, the Kingdom of Shitaro. These places are just so spectacular. They lure you in, they spark imagination. There's so many details that you just want to explore. If you're starting out with settings like these, you're off to a really strong start in your storytelling. Theme. Right, what's your story really about? Typically, a theme is tied to what a character needs to do to get what he or she wants to do. A great example of this moment is again with Nia, that at her almost low point, she's in that realization moment of truly understanding she needs to let go of that perfection. She needs to let go of always being that perfect girl, things to be done in a perfect way. In that moment, she learns and she grows. And as an audience, we are there with her. We understand certainly there's a bigger message coming at us in a really subtle but emotional way. I hope I have inspired you to explore and amplify your own storyline to make a great LEGO Ninjago comic, but also storytelling in general. Have fun with it. Keep refining it. Go play.
Hi everyone, my name is Ian Santamaria and I'm a senior concept artist here at the LEGO Group, and I am also a comic book creator and a comic book artist. Usually a comic book has more than just one page. It's a compilation of a lot of moments, big and small, just mashed up together for a lot of entertainment and a lot of storytelling. But for today, we are going to talk about how to make your own comic book page. And what we want to do is start with an establishing shot. Zane here, jumping into the fray with that classic one-leg superhero jump. One of our ninjas is after maybe one of the Bone Warriors who has stolen his sword. And it's always nice to have your references right in front of you. So we read the images from left to right. We start in a very dynamic fashion. It's right into the action. Always helps if you add sound effects while you draw. And you might notice that I am adding some block shading in some parts that actually helps with the separation of one subject from the other. That adds a visual sound effect. Stuff like that. Boom. Explode from outside the panel. adds a lot more dynamism to it. So we finished our first panel. This is our establishing action shot. For the next panel, this is what we call a reaction shot. I'm going to leave this area open a bit, and later on I'll show you why. And sometimes lines like these, they just signify visual exclamation points, like ah! So what's gonna happen now in the third one is sort of like a reveal panel. We're gonna share a panel. I'm imagining this now as one panoramic shot that's split in the middle. Always helps to have a ruler. Lightly draw that perspective in. You're noticing that I'm drawing on this panel, but I'm going to overlap it here on the other side. And this is our bone warrior on the bike. This same bike is the same thing that I'm drawing on this page, even though proportions aren't the same. And that's always okay. Little bits and pieces of debris falling out from the back. You know, when you see comic books with these motion lines, it usually just means the subject they're drawing has some sort of motion. So we're moving to the fourth panel. This is, well, for me at the very least, is the exciting part, because we're gonna get to draw this guy. Remember when I said I was trying to keep the area of the second panel here pretty clear? Now you're gonna see why. It's a great big reveal shot. Each comic book page, I think, should have that visual exclamation point. And we go to our corrective pen, and we're gonna erase those panel lines. You can have that really cool effect of this dragon's head popping out of the panel. And let's have our dragon showing off his teeth. Roar. Thick lines will always help separate the images from one another. So even though I'm not drawing the dragon exactly how it should be, it is very much influenced by the dragon that we have here on our table. So one thing is actually happening in two panels. We have that bike jumping in our fourth panel, but we have our giant dragon right there blocking his way. Okay, and we're moving on to panel 5. So if you noticed that I'm drawing our bone warrior facing the other way. So visually, in that story, I am trying to convey that he is moving away from what he saw on the right. So this will make things easier for the reader. So as our bad guy turns around, what does he do? He leaves the sword behind. What happens now in panel 6? Our bone warrior just let go of his sword. That was maybe what Zane was after in the beginning. Speed lines always help with that punctuation. So I would like to have our little ninja with a little bit of dialogue right here. So I'm thinking maybe the word balloon falls on the lower left. A little bit of detailing, a little bit of shading for some contrast. Maybe a little bit of smoke in the background. And then he says, yeah, you better run. There you have it. Your simple story in a single comic book page. Thank you for joining us today. We had so much fun sharing what we know with you. And remember, it's never too late to learn something new. Be ninja.